Alright, I just hit 100,000 subscribers, and there were a few videos I've been waiting to make until I knew I had enough people hooked on special teams that it would really hit like crack in the 80s, and at this point, you're probably multiple hours worth of content hooked into specialist and punter propaganda. You've seen so many insane punts that you can't understand how announcers ever end up not silent in disbelief, but you are still left wondering, sure, these are some great punts, great games even, but what are the best punting games of all time? And dear viewer, that is what I'm here to answer. The statistical best punting games in recorded NFL history with a minimum of 8 punts. And a big thank you to NFL Access Pass for giving me access to this footage for your viewing and entertainment pleasure. And another thank you to Puntalytics on Twitter. These guys compiled this data, made it extremely easy to find, and are the sole reason this video is getting out as close to the 100,000 mark as it is. Coming in at number 5, we have a legendary battle of Mike Scrifes, a sleeper goat for the Chargers, taking on Dustin Colquitt, one of the best Kansas City has ever seen, in an absolute showing in 2011. Nobody could have predicted what we were about to get. Mike Scrifes opens us up with an absolute beauty from backed up heels inside the end zone. He knocks the ball all the way inside the opposite 25-yard line with enough hang time that the Chiefs are only able to get it back to the 33. A completely field-flipping punt. Next, he comes back out and hits a gorgeous 46-yarder out of bounds at the 20 to keep the Chiefs pinned, where we would get to see Colquitt unleash an absolute intercontinental ballistic missile while he was backed up to the opposite 43-yard line, netting every bit of 52 yards as he forced a fair catch. Later, he has to come back out and hits the shortest punt of the day, 47 yards with a short return. That's right, worst punt of the day, netted 41 yards in 2011. If you don't know how unreal that is, the average net punt in 2011 was less than 40 yards. But the second half, all chips on the table, and Colquitt hits a cock rocket 68 yards down to the 12-yard line, where the Chargers begin to mount a comeback, which required another Colquitt punt to attempt to quell, and my God, he opens up again from the shadow of his end zone, 61 yards on the fly. Sure, a 16-yard return, but still, the Chargers are now stuck on the other side of midfield, and tied ball game, 5 minutes left of regulation. Colquitt has a chance to keep it that way and hits a monster of a punt, 58 yards to the 16-yard line, where unfortunately there's a big return, but the game does not end. It goes to overtime, and Scrifes has a chance to make a play, and he hasn't punted since the second quarter, but that does not matter. He lambasts it 58 yards on the fly. Scrifes average 56 yards per punt, with Colquitt on 5 punts averaging 57.2, as we got to witness an absolute fireworks show. But if that's just number 5, oh buddy, wait until number 4. We jump forward to the current year, where no one would expect, but if you're a true Isaac Punts viewer, you may already know what game I'm talking about. It's the Cleveland Browns taking on the Las Vegas Raiders, and this was poised to be a miserable game. The Browns, led by Watson, the Raiders, well, just the Raiders, but AJ Cole and Corey Bojorquez would not let us down. AJ comes out and opens up with a 66-yard rocket of a punt, absolutely flipping the field since he was in the back of his end zone. A couple drives later, Bojorquez finds himself hovering around the 15 and says, you know what, maybe the returner should catch the ball around here, and hits 60-yard punt number 2 of the day to the 11-yard line. And this game wasn't all about power. They had some pins. How about this? Bojorquez's next punt, 37 yards to the 3, making sure the tie ball game stays that way going into the half. Before the second half gave us more unbelievable fireworks. I thought World War III was starting. Bojorquez comes back out, hits 60-yard punt number 3 as it goes 61 yards down to the 10-yard line. Finally, AJ gets a chance to respond, but he's too close to the end zone to hit a 60-yarder, so he just hits a 54-yarder out of bounds at the 5. Are you kidding me? And the only one way to respond to this is by Bojorquez hitting a 74-yard touchback. Now AJ comes back out and pins the Browns at the 10 again, and Bojorquez has only one reasonable response, and it's hit an 84-yarder for 60-plus punt number 5 of the day, with AJ's only reasonable response is from his own goal line to hit a 67-yarder on the fly. This was a battle of the punting gods. Every single ball absolutely critical to staying in this game, with 6 of 9 punts going over 60 yards. Corey averaging 63.2 yards per punt. AJ averaging 58 yards per punt in a game where if you hit a punt that didn't go over 60 yards, it started the opposing opposing team at or inside the 10-yard line. So if this is just number 4, you are not going to believe what number 3 is. Here we go. 2023 Jaguars taking on the Falcons. If you're new here, there's a reason that we on the Isaac Punch channel declare Logan Cook to be the true GOAT of punting, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, sit back and watch the next 2 games. We're in London, and Logan is going to kick us off with his first punt. He lays up a 50-yard dot to the 7-yard line, but ultimately gets down at the 3. Now, this also features one of the league's more underrated punters, Bradley Pinion, who absolutely was ready to go toe-to-toe with the GOAT on this day as he hits from deep in his own territory a 61-yarder to the 23, where there's only a short 5-yard return to the 28. The Jaguars score, and Bradley is forced to punt again, this time ball at the 26. Jaguars thinking they'll get at least okay field position, but nope, start inside your own 20. No chance to return for you heathens either. The Jags can only turn that into a field goal before Pinion is forced again, this time punt number 3, and it's a 62-yarder to the 7, where Kirk tries to get outside the 20 to no avail. Now, Cook would finally get a chance to respond and does so with a 59-yard forced fair catch all the way inside the 15-yard line. A lot of irrelevant stuff happens after that, but Pinion gets to come back out, rocket a 49-yarder that forces a fair catch at the 20-yard line. So Cook comes back in the third quarter and hits a 47-yarder out of bounds at the 7. He is now a perfect 3 for 3 inside the 22, inside the 10, 1 inside the 5. Pinion finishes his game off with a 41-yard fair catch to the 10. This game ends with Pinion averaging 54.2 yards per punt, netting over 50 yards per punt, and putting 3 inside the 20, while Cook netted every single inch of the 53.3 yards he punted, while constantly keeping the Falcons backed up. And that's nothing compared to the 2021 match. That brings us to number 2 on the list. Jaguars taking on the Rams. Logan Cook taking on Johnny Hekker. Now, if you are a ball knower, just the fact that this battle exists should send shivers down your spines, and boy howdy do they deliver like a fat man on the 25th of December. Now, this game was an absolute blowout, let's not mince words, but the punting we got is nary unrivaled. It opens up literally as good as it can with an absolute bomb. The returner lets it go hoping for a touchback, but this is Logan Cook, so he's got divine intervention on his side as the returner's hopes get dashed at the 1-yard line. Then Johnny Hekker responds with the trademark banana punt, forcing the fair catch at the 27. Not super sexy, but super efficient, before Cook bombs another one down Broadway, 53 yards, forcing Cup, who's learned his lesson now, to back up and fair catch it inside the 10. While Hekker puts a ball up there with so much hang, his coverage team literally is tripping over the returner trying to cover it. They get a penalty, but it's still a gorgeous ball. Now, the Jags would be forced to punt one more time, so Cook hits one down to the 11-yard line. A brilliant punt before the second half opens up similar to the first, with Cook nuking another ball as this one drives Powell back to the 15 and he's forced to fair catch it. And while this game after this quickly gets away from the Jags, late in the fourth, they let Cook cook one last time, and once again he hits a fair catch inside the 10. 5 punts, 0 return yards, everything inside the 20, 3 inside the 10, but that's not over. Hekker says, hey, I can do that too. He walks right, he punts left, the ball goes inside the 10, and his coverage team has the diving grab to down it at the 1-yard line. My God, what a game. Hekker, 3 punts, 50 yards of pure net with a gorgeous 58-yarder to the 1-yard line to match Cook's perfect 5 for 5 inside the 20, leaving returners wondering why they were even out on the field to begin with. Now you must be wondering, what the hell is game number 1? Well, let me take you back to 2001 Giants Broncos, where we would get an absolute showing in Mile High. We open up with a Tom Rowan punt from his 23, where he starts us off by hitting one inside the opposing 30-yard line, every bit of 49 yards of the short return. And these were very different times, so keep that in mind. But then we get our real star of the show, Rodney Williams, who narrowly avoids a block to set off an absolute rocket over the head of the returner, netting 58 yards to pin the Broncos at the 6-yard line. But they turn it over at the 1-yard line, forcing him to punt from backed up again, where he sets off a monstrous 54-yard punt with the missed tackle to set up a small return. And if you're not impressed yet, just bear with me, because he would come back out from the opposite end of the field and hit a gorgeous coffin corner with, if you ask me, a terrible spot to bring it up to the 11-yard line before Tom gets to respond with a 44-yard punt to keep the Giants at bay at their 15. From here, Rodney hits a 37-yarder, and I can feel your anticipation rising. If this is the greatest game, something crazy is about to happen, and it's midway through the third. Rodney 5 deep in his own end zone, the Giants on their back foot, and he absolutely blasts this ball. It is 70 yards on the fly, landing at the opposite 20, then taking another 20 yards of bounce to go 90 freaking yards and netting 70. Tom, feeling inspired by what he just saw, tries to keep up and demolishes a 63-yard punt on the fly, forcing the muff, where it's picked up for a short return. So Rodney tries to pin the Broncos again to give Tom better field position to hit a nuke, but when the returner gets too shifty, he runs down and finishes the tackle off himself. But he wasn't done. He hits another 60-yard blast to the 14-yard line, where there's a short return outside the 20, as he would end his absolute monstrous campaign with a 68-yard ball down to the 5-yard line. Rodney Williams, are you joking? On top of that, Rowan comes back out and forces a fair catch at the 10-yard line. In 2001, 2 punters, Rodney Williams with a 55-yard average, a long of 90, a 68 down at the 5, 58 down at the 6, and Tom Rowan with a 50.3-yard average. This game has stood the test of time for being one of the greatest punting games we have ever seen, and for good reason, because I doubt we're going to see one like this again.